Hello and welcome to today's 39th webinar in the On the Move webinar series, Connect Technology and People for Increased System Reliability, brought to you by Honeywell Intelligrated. I'm Tracy Niehaus, Director of Marketing for Honeywell Intelligrated, and I'm your moderator today. We have just a few announcements before we begin. Please note that this presentation's audio is provided by phone number or through your computer sound system, so be sure to turn up your computer's volume. You may ask an online question at any time throughout today's presentation in the Q&A feature along the bottom of your screen. Simply type your question into the text area and hit send. Questions will be addressed at the conclusion of the presentation, with the exception of technical questions that can be asked and will be answered real time. Please note that we recommend that you be hardwired when attending this webinar. A Wi-Fi connection may result in lag time in slides updating and graphics loading. Today's webinar includes polling questions. Please feel free to answer these questions when they appear and be sure to click submit so we can include your response, as we will be sharing the results real time during this live event. If you'd like to revisit key sections of today's webinar, it will be available on demand at intelligrated.com/on-the-move approximately 48 hours after this live event. And you'll also receive an email in a couple of days with a link to the recorded event. Now on to the presentation, Connect Technology and People for Increased System Reliability. Discussing today's topic will be Anthony Pisciotti, VP and General Manager of Lifecycle Services at Honeywell Intelligrated. Anthony commercializes the lifecycle support services offerings across the company's warehouse automation business. In addition, he leads the development and integration of a wide variety of offerings to satisfy customers' needs. Anthony oversees the on-site, remote, and digital execution of service offerings from parts fulfillment, equipment maintenance and support, upgrade programs, through to operational consulting. A converted finance leader, Anthony was previously the CFO of Honeywell Intelligrated, and he has been in the industry since 2017. Prior to entering the warehouse automation industry, Anthony held roles in the aviation, oil and gas, locomotive, and energy industries. Also presenting today is Eric Rice, Principal Product Marketing Manager at Honeywell Intelligrated. Eric is responsible for leading IIoT application and commercialization at Honeywell Intelligrated, including developing pilots and growing necessary teams to support and develop. He leverages more than 20 years of technical and management experience in the material handling industry, with special expertise in controls, IIoT, remote connectivity, and sales enablement. And with those introductions, the webinar will now begin.
Hey, Tracy, thanks for the intro, and definitely looking forward this afternoon to talk with everyone about how we can connect people and technology and drive better outcomes. So I wanted to start out talking about, what are your pressures? Where are you feeling pressure at? And we definitely have seen where downtime can be a pressure, and we've seen that 80% of businesses are really not very able to estimate their downtime accurately. So you're having downtime, and you may be underestimating how much that's costing you by 200 to 300%. And what do you need for success? We believe you need visibility from anywhere, being able to quickly identify bottlenecks in the productivity of your operation. You're feeling the pressure to maintain equipment in less and less time. You're feeling pressure to reduce the inventory that you keep on site for spare parts. It's always a struggle to capture and transfer knowledge between employees. And it's becoming more and more difficult to replace skilled labor as you have attrition or retirements in the current labor market. And overall, we think that a lot of people right now are trying to overcome unpredictability. The current situation in the world today is part of it, but also, we were having some drivers up to today and before the pandemic that were pressuring labor and skill sets. And I wanted to start, talking about this idea of a failure curve. So just to let me highlight a couple spots on this for you. So for those that aren't familiar, this is basically the asset health curve and how equipment tends to perform over time. So you start out at this nice green baseline when you've initially installed equipment. And then as over time, you start to follow this yellow line. So as equipment starts to wear and degrade, you start to see a performance loss. And then if no actions are taken, you're actually going to see some sort of critical failure. So you're going to have maybe some kind of extended downtime that happens based on the wear in the equipment. So what we really want to see is how do we help customers move, from maybe critical failure point, which would be kind of a break fix approach, all the way back up this curve to a detectable change where you're actually using software and analytics to make some maintenance decision. So as you fall over the curve here, the cost to serve goes up. So, as you have critical downtime or equipment gets very worn, it costs more and more to go from the point that you're at back up to this nice green baseline that you want to have that was optimal when the system was installed. So there's a couple of points on here. There's detectable change and observable change. So a lot of times observable change is, now I can actually hear something going wrong with my ears, or I'm walking around and seeing something shaking around, or I'm actually seeing damage on equipment. So we really, want to back up to this detectable change where you're using sensors and software analytics to catch an issue before it starts to come down the curve. Something to keep in mind with the performance loss and then this critical failure points, I would say the red is run to fail, or what we would call break fix. And then in the yellow, this is your preventative maintenance. So even with a preventive maintenance program, you could still, you're still going to see some kind of erosion of performance, and you may be spending more than you need to spend to keep yourself on this curve, because you might be replacing parts at certain time intervals, even if they're not worn out. So let's talk about making this journey to predictability. So, this is we're gonna do a polling question after this and kind of help understand, where you might be in this journey to predictability. So do you have frequent disruptions? Is data hard for you to get at to make decisions? Is equipment being run to failure? Is there downtimes that are actually inhibiting the ability to get product out the door and serve customers? Do you have fewer disruptions where you actually have some data you can make some decisions off of? Maintenance and preventative maintenance is a part of the operation, and time is getting scheduled, and you're actually getting some actionable insights from your data to drive higher productivity? Or are you in this no disruptions column where you are gathering data, you feel like you've automated that pretty well, your predictive maintenance is actually in place and you're optimizing that, and you have very little unplanned downtime? So our first question is going to be, where are you on this journey to predictability? Are you having frequent disruptions? Are you having just a few disruptions, or are you having no disruptions at all? And we'll give you about 30 seconds here to answer that. And again, frequent disruptions would be, very little data to make decisions on. Few disruptions are you have some data, you got preventative maintenance in place. And then no disruptions, you feel like you've got this handled, actionable data exists, and you're able to run the system with very little downtime. All right, cool. So there's the results. Very few of you have frequent disruptions. It seems like most people here in the middle here with a few disruptions, and some of you have really got it handled here in the no disruption category. And what we believe are organizations that adopt a real data-driven lifecycle approach are positioned to win. Digital transformation can equal real business results. Let's, talk through, some of the personas that may be in the organization and some of the things that they're thinking about. So you have your supply chain executive who's really working to drive down that cost per case shipped across their entire network. They need a way to compare, system uptime and productivity across multiple systems in that network. And then, one of the thoughts is, if you gain enough efficiency across the enterprise, can you avoid the CapEx of having to invest in new equipment or build another building if you can gain some percentages of additional throughput through your existing facilities? And then the operations manager is always getting asked for more output. They need to eliminate bottlenecks and optimize that flow through the building. How can they get visibility to help them drive productivity and make real-time decisions? And on the maintenance side, how do I get all that maintenance done with less and less time to do the work? And in that tight labor market, like we talked about, it's tough to get people trained when you lose them. And where can I go for technical help when you get into a bind? So there's a lot of people out there that talk about dashboards, and there's a lot of dashboards that are in place. But a dashboard is just that. It's a dashboard. It may not be leveraged. It may have to be watched. You might not have someone that's dedicated to try and take any action on that dashboard. So there's a sea of dashboards out there, but data on a dashboard without any action behind it isn't very valuable. So how do you evolve beyond a dashboard? So one of our, some of our thoughts here are, you got to stabilize initially. So you start to collect some data and you can get ahead of things that you did not know or were even aware that might be happening. It might be like repetitive issues that are happening day in and day out that operations are dealing with, that maybe maintenance doesn't realize, or key performance indicators that are falling off the map that aren't getting bubbled up. So then you can transform. So you have some data, there's things happening, get some tools to interpret that data to make sure you're actually taking action, getting a group together that can actually act on the data. And then finally growing, right? Fine-tuning your operations activities, using productivity KPIs to make improvements, and really paying attention to asset health information to make decisions about when to do maintenance. So it's great to perform a gap analysis, right? So know where you're at, where you want to go, what the gap is in between to get it solved. So maybe you don't have visibility into downtime, so some kind of real-time monitoring and history system would be important to help you drive new KPIs around overall equipment effectiveness, uptime, and throughput. Maybe increased customer demand is really driving you to run systems harder. So, baselining that data, trying to improve performance, and justifying that there's more equipment that needs to be invested in to meet this increased demand. You're probably dealing with smaller planned downtime windows. So that's where condition-based maintenance is important to help enhance the schedule that you're putting together with equipment that needs to be dealt with right away to avoid any downtime. And then higher utilization of the systems, which there's, I've heard from many customers that systems today are running at peak levels and we haven't even got fully into peak yet. So over the last 6 months, you're seeing peak levels and now you're getting ready to head into even the peak of the peak, some are saying. So, predictive maintenance, really having the sensorization and ways to be able to understand the health of the system. Escalations and notifications that come out automatically and start getting people in motion to correct issues to really reduce the risk of unplanned downtime. And then, we've talked about skilled labor retiring. So retaining that system knowledge, having a system that contains all the procedures to be able to do the work the most efficiently and get that better knowledge transfer. Or maybe you have, islands of data in a lot of different systems or very limited history, or you're collecting data manually in spreadsheets or over radios. It's very time consuming. So moving that data to some kind of automatic capture, and then making it automatic, and creating some actionable insights around it. And why would we bother with data? Well, data drives the key performance indicators that you're collecting can drive a lot of operational efficiency. So think about bad gaps, something that seems rather benign going into a sortation system, but it's one of those types of issues that unless someone calls over the radio and tries to get resolved, it's something that creeps up over time. So it might be a 0.5 percentage point error, but then it can creep up to a 10 percentage point error before people realize, hey, why is there so much recirculation on this sorter? If I could have got an alert about this ahead of time, I could have made a different decision and addressed it much sooner rather than days or maybe even weeks after I started to see that degradation. The same thing with read conflicts and no reads. Being able to detect that there's a degrading performance on the scanning system that could be tied to how items are picked, or it could be tied to the actual performance of the scanning device itself. Jams and repetitive issues around equipment stopping. So being able to identify those hot spots where there's a lot of operator intervention that's happening, that's actually eroding your overall performance, maybe putting the system out of balance. And then having a network view of everything together across multiple DCs gives you that ability to have great discussions. We have customers that are having discussions between DCs and challenging each other to improve some of the base KPIs they're measuring across the enterprise. And I wanted to talk a little bit about condition-based maintenance and actually using machine learning and vibration data. So I think that seems kind of daunting. So when you think about vibration data, there's a lot of people that say you have to have a vibration expert in-house to be able to get any value out of that kind of data. But times are changing. The software packages that can interpret this data are getting better and better. And what you can actually do is start to replace some of the technician walkthroughs that happen, before the shift starts, and look at multiple data points, not just motor vibration. So when you think about motor vibration, there's a lot of times going to be people think of false alarms as well, maybe some annoying faults that happened, or the data is difficult to access. But really, what you want to do is combine vibration data with power consumption, the current status from the control system. You can build that into a machine learning model that kind of replaces the feel and hear of a system when someone's doing a walkthrough. So using these advanced analytics, you train them, and then you can find these anomalies that are really going to help alert technicians with less familiarity. So instead of having to have the expert walk the side and listen for something or feel for something, these sensors and machine learning algorithms can actually replace that. So, we've definitely got some great success stories about this. So we've had a customer that's been monitoring 45 motors for about 12 months, and they've been able to detect 9 different types of issues that happen in the system before they cause downtime. So, issues with bearing lubrication, so making sure someone gets back in and finishes a PM, a shaft failure before it happens, belts that are cracked before they break, oilers that aren't oiling, end rollers out of alignment, even gearboxes that are out of alignment between the drive, transmission, and the belt surface, and even on issues on like the physical equipment itself. So there's a picture there of a slider pan, and this was detected, using a machine learning anomaly detection model. And this particular piece of equipment had already been PM'd, and it wasn't due to be PM'd for another month when it was damaged. And the customer was able to go discover this and get it corrected before it caused the belt to tear up and caused a several-hour downtime in the middle of their critical sortation path. So this customer saved between $100,000 and $200,000 worth of unplanned downtime by paying attention to the data and getting alerts to go access the data. And let's talk about automating some legacy manual processes. So, I mentioned earlier about collecting data, and maybe you do it over the radio, maybe you're doing an Excel spreadsheet, but being able to gather that data real time offers a lot of advantage because you can actually affect a trend, before the next day or the next shift. You can actually start to do it mid shift. So there's a lot of manual data collection that goes on, and the solution is building a data analytics dashboard that actually helps you act on the data. So developing some standard visualizations, the reporting methods, and then coaching the end users of this dashboard on how to leverage it. So we know that there was a general manager spending about 45 minutes a day entering data. And then at another location, we had a group of operation managers that were gathering data across multiple sites, but they were each doing it differently. So it was tough to help, the enterprise customer understand how all that data rolled up together. But they were probably spending about $40,000 a year in labor just recording all this data in different spreadsheets. And then, no one was really, not necessarily acting on the data in real time. When you combine it into a dashboard that is color coded, that allows you to take action more quickly and also send out automated alerts to engage the right resources to get the issues resolved. So then, how can we get there? So let's talk about connected services a little bit. So you can integrate enabling technologies, right? Technologies around asset health, like we talked about sensors and data from the control system, the computerized maintenance management system, or a CMMS, that allows you to get all the data around an asset in one place, allows you to get your procedures squared away and do your best practices. Maybe voice-directed technology that allows you to work through an equipment inspection hands-free. And then even augmented reality to help you use vision to better understand what's going on with the piece of equipment. So, why do you want to get to that predictive maintenance level? So the DOE did a study, and it's pretty massive reductions in savings that come from transitioning from a break fix to a predictive maintenance type program. So, a 25 to 30% reduction in maintenance costs, 75% elimination of equipment breakdowns because you know what's going to happen ahead of time, a 35 to 40% decrease in production downtime, and a 20 to 25% increase in productivity within that system. So let's show, kind of how this all fits together. I wanted to run this video. Let me play this.
In connected infrastructures, DCs can now streamline the entire maintenance task lifecycle, from issue detection to response and resolution. Connected services from Honeywell Intelligrated are empowering this process with advanced diagnostics, voice automation, and augmented reality technology. Using vibration and electrical current sensors, the system detects excess current draw on a conveyor motor and triggers an alarm on a critical curve of the sortation loop. As the DC manager reviews the location and severity of the issue on the operational dashboard, a technician is notified via an automatically generated work order. The technician begins a voice-directed inspection of the belt tension and discovers an issue that's not covered by the standard repair procedure.
Alert call detected, excess current draw. Check belt tension. Ready. Needed tools, 19mm wrench and required PPE. Ready. Perform lockout tagout of equipment. When ready to continue, say ready. Ready. Tension bearing adjustment bolts at inside radius and locations of drive and tail pulleys so belt face at corners is flush. Ready. Remove lockout tagout. To continue, say ready. Ready. Perform operation check. Fail. Contact tech site for further assistance.
TechSite smart glasses allow the technician to interact with a remote technical support expert and show them the specific problem at hand. The remote expert takes control of the motor through machine control and shows the technician how to fix the problem, even displaying schematic drawings and instructions on the technician's field of view. After addressing the issue, the technician can now resume voice-guided resolution of the belt tension checklist.
Issue resolved with text type. Pass.
Upon completion of this process, the technician confirms that the current draw on the motor has returned to normal levels, and the belt is now at the correct tension. Honeywell Intelligrated combines connected services to automate the entire issue detection, diagnosis, and resolution process.
Okay, so from the video there you saw, if we look across the bottom of the screen here, right, we're combining several technologies, the asset health and remote monitoring, asset management to create work orders and manage that, the voice-directed preventative maintenance process, and then, that video-enabled issue resolution. So had another polling question for you guys. Where do you think the greatest value would be generated by combining these different technologies? Is that big technology in avoiding downtime? Is the biggest gains in improving production output? Is it really augmenting that labor skill set, upskilling those employees? Is it just about process and streamlining the maintenance process? Is it just important to keep accurate records? Or the safety aspect, when you look at going through the voice inspection, you actually can see that, you get safety prompts and reminders to help make sure you're following the best practices. All right, so interesting, avoiding downtime and improving productivity output are tied. I kind of thought improving production output would be the clear winner. But no, good to know. Thanks for the feedback. So just to talk about a few of the different pieces of the solution that you saw, right? So we have connected assets, which talks about, the real-time notifications. It's using sensors that are installed on site, as well as the control system that's on site to give a multi-level view of the health of equipment, both from a vibration, temperature, and power draw standpoint, as well as from a key performance indicator for that piece of equipment. There's a few different features that we're showing here. If you look at the little blocks, that's what you call the heat map. So it goes from a cool blue to a hot red based on the the severity of issues that are at hand. So helps you take a look at equipment in between maintenance periods to see if there's something that needs to be addressed before it could cause some downtime. And you can break that down into a fault tree. And with the fault tree, you can navigate the system and see the details around exactly what piece of health is causing you is really causing the error. Is it a sensor and the motor vibration, or maybe it's actually a key performance indicator like a scanner read rate or a gap or a tracking rate that's causing the block to turn red. And then there's also a rich historical information available to look through your previous KPIs and help to understand where you're at and if you're getting better. And then IRIS, our computerized maintenance management system, the different pieces of that enable connected services are, this OEM expertise at the initial setup. So all the procedures you need to maintain the equipment are included right here with the OEM. Maintenance standards across an entire enterprise. So they keep employees safe by following the right procedures. And those are actually updated within the system periodically. Being able to do spare parts inventory and purchasing, up-to-date pricing info, and being able to get usage information about the kind of parts that are being used. Maintenance planning and scheduling, so a labor calendar for great visibility to assignments, and you can prioritize as well as straighten out your resources. And then reporting, across the enterprise, either standard reports or ad hoc reports. On the voice-directed maintenance inspection, you gain efficiency. You don't have any manual data entry. It's a hands-free, so there's no frustration for the end user. Definitely improved accuracy. So, you're not trying to copy things from a piece of paper back to the computer, and you're recording information live as soon as you do the action. So you're not walking back maybe to a computer terminal and typing in what you think you saw. So it provides more accurate info. And then you get real-time visibility into exactly, what steps are being taken and how far into the workflow a technician might be. And it does increase employee satisfaction because it enables them to be successful early on from day one. And we've seen, a 25% reduction in inspection time and over a 30% reduction in the time it takes to get data entered from one system to another. And then a little bit about TechSite. So TechSite and the voice, they work together to really upskill you with technology. So even if you have someone that has less experience on a system, armed with these tools, they can go through the right process. They can detect an issue automatically, go through the right processes with the voice, and then they can get some expert help if they need it over an I see what you see type video solution. So definitely decreases your mean time to repair. So there's been many a time when you're on the phone with someone and they're describing an issue, but you really aren't getting the whole story. So being able to see exactly what that person sees, hands-free and real-time document sharing, which is a really powerful tool. So you can, as you saw in the video, take a snapshot of what a technician is looking at and make annotations on that and put it back in their view so they can see exactly what it is they need to do. You can also grab a schematic or another piece of, or another document and highlight the parts of that document they need to act on right away. And definitely expedites issue resolution without, travel costs or delays. So a lot of times, you're waiting that 12 to 24 hours to get someone on site, and you can virtually have someone on site right away. And in today's environment, with travel bans and the difficulty to get from one place to another, this may be the best resolution or this may be definitely the fastest resolution if someone can't make it to site. And then also improves inspection efficiencies with the ability to collaborate real time with the service expert. Then I have another polling question. Are there still manual processes keeping you from seeing activity in your facility in real time? So, do you have a lot of things that are holding you back, many disparate systems that aren't very connected, just a few things that you can't see, or maybe not at all? You feel like everything's perfect and you're on top of being able to see everything you need to see from facility data standpoint. All right, so it looks like a lot of people feel like they have many things that are keeping them from seeing the activity in their facility in real time. So good to know. And the next couple slides here, let's talk about how we can get started, what we think some of the steps are to change that. So as I said earlier, digital transformation really does drive business results. And to get there, you got to have some data that's going to drive some outcomes. So what we would recommend is when you define these outcomes, you start with a small scope. Don't try to boil the ocean. It's easy to get caught up in building a very large scope, and it becomes very expensive and difficult to implement. So from a strategy standpoint, what do you think the most important KPIs are? So pick a KPI or two, maybe around a sortation system or around a maintenance activity where you feel like there's inefficiency, and let's try to drive down one of those. So pick a KPI to influence, and then you got to start establishing building blocks. What systems do you need the data from? So what's the outline of that data schema, and how does that fit together? And then build up what are the tools you're going to need from a building block standpoint. Is it a tool to show you asset health? Is it a conveyor maintenance management system? Is it a KPI reporting tool? Is it something to streamline your maintenance and inspection? What are the what are those building blocks that you're going to need to invest in? And then implement the plan. You can work with a partner to get best practices, and then work really hard to deliver outcomes. So, and it takes a really close collaboration and some different thinking to make one of these digital transformations successful. It is a transformation, right? So it's going to require, different thinking within the organization. What we found are the best way to get traction is actually building a team within your organization that's responsible for delivering that outcome. So create some responsible parties, and then have some kind of regular cadence. We have a customer success cadence where we hold ourselves and customers accountable when we dive into a data type engagement by meeting weekly and looking at insights that were created over the last week or so, and then what the action is to help resolve those, and then measuring what the value of the savings are. So that's a very big point, is actually measuring the value of the savings. So we see a lot of customers run pilots, but they don't define a very clear outcome, and they don't track whether that outcome was delivered. So you might put in some sensors and try them out for 6 months, but there's not a way maybe to measure what that end value was. So working closely with an internal team and a partner to establish the value is very important. And then I wanted to end on just some ideas around shifting your thinking. When you define outcomes, is uptime really the outcome you're looking for, or throughput? I talk with a lot of customers, and sometimes uptime and throughput are things that you can trade off. If you have some kind of limited downtime, you can actually overcome that. So maybe uptime isn't your driving factor. Maybe it's cost per package, or you're having so many problems you just want to get through the shift. So how do you manage that? How can you define an outcome around improving the day-to-day, maybe for the maintenance staff or the operations staff? Create that data. When you create that data strategy, you have to keep in mind, right, it's going to be a lot more transparent than it was. So it's going to make people uncomfortable maybe to see real-time productivity beyond the building's four walls. Can you survive that? Is that going to cause a lot of friction in your organization? Will I have to change my entire mindset? I think you do have to make a lot of change to your mindset to become data-driven, and you have to invest small and think about how it's going to grow in the future. And then if you have conflicting metrics, how are they going to get resolved? So what is going to be your source of truth, your system of record to help you when you're measuring these key performance indicators? And you're building the building blocks, what are you going to build in-house, and what do you want to outsource? I see that's kind of all over the map right now when you look at how customers are trying to drive a digital transformation or move to predictability. Some customers are trying to build their own solution. Some customers are relying on partners, and there's a lot of choices out there right now. And is it going to cost or save me? Can I find that ROI if I'm going to invest in the software platform, as an example? Will it really change priorities? You want to make sure that if you're going to invest in a system, talk about digital transformation, you're going to have to change your priorities based on the data you're getting from that system. And you can't just keep doing what you're doing from all the pressures we talked about on the very first slide, right? There's more and more demand on the systems today. The maintenance staff are harder and harder to find with the right skill set as well. And then, focus on delivering that outcome. And once you have that outcome, then take what you've learned, take the savings that you have, and then reinvest in that next key performance indicator or that next measure that you want to improve. And that's very important to think about how you're going to do that reinvestment piece. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tracy to see what kind of questions we had come in during our talk today.
Wonderful. So thanks so much, Eric. Much appreciated. And as Eric mentioned, we are going to move on to our question and answer portion of our event. So as a reminder to our attendees, you're able to ask a question online in the Q&A feature along the bottom of your screen. And while attendees might be going ahead and doing that, we do have a couple questions that have come in. So I will go ahead and start asking those to you, Eric. Our first question is, what are the common barriers to preventing the use of this technology?
Yeah, common barriers. I talked about a couple of them. There's some technical barriers, and there's just some people and experience barriers. So the biggest barrier that we see is customers struggle to understand how to apply technology to actually change their processes. And once they, if you get over that hurdle, then it's like, how do you justify the investment up front? So it takes effort to build a business plan and define those outcomes we talked about up front and understand the value that's going to bring back to the organization. And once you can get over that, you can actually get a lot of traction to get a pilot or some early stage experiment started.
Okay. Next question. We have a small IT team. How hard is it to set up and maintain this technology?
Yeah, and that probably depends on when we talked about the building blocks, how you want to go about that. So if you're going to try and build a predictive maintenance system and data historian yourself, I think that can be very challenging for a small IT team. But when you look at the cloud solutions that are available, really it's very lightweight on the implementation side for those IT teams. It might be creating a virtual machine to begin a data gathering platform and providing some firewall rules to allow data to be uploaded.
Okay. Let's see. How often can issues be resolved remotely?
Issues can be resolved, when you look at our technical support statistics, issues get resolved, over 90% of the time remotely. It's that last 10% that you end up sending people to the field for. And the challenge of that last 10% is they're normally critical. So if you have a critical outage and then you're waiting 12 to 24 hours to have someone on site, that's major downtime. And that's very difficult for most customers to make up.
All right. Yes, I have a couple more questions. How does this solution improve safety, and what kind of outcomes are you seeing?
Yeah, so from a safety standpoint, when you look at like the voice maintenance and inspection and also the tech site solutions, those allow you to be, they call it hands-free and eyes-free. So you're able to move about it and do your tasks without looking down at a piece of paper, as an example, and you're always watching where you're going. And from an outcome standpoint, on this previous slide, we talked about like a 25 and 30% reduction in data entry and inspection time.
All right. The next question is, where is the easiest place to start?
We believe the easiest place to start is around like your highest value operation within a building. So a lot of time that tends to be an outbound shipping sortation system, but it's where downtime impacts the most labor and the most output from the building. So that's where we recommend starting, and that allows you to build the largest financial justification as well.
Yeah, well, that's a good, actually, that answers a good segue into the next question, which is, how do you measure the progress or success for connected services?
Yeah, that's when I talked about, that how important it was to measure the outcome. And, we recommend forming a team that's actually dedicated to finding that value and that outcome. So we like to talk about it as customer success. So we have a customer success management team that is partnering with our customers that are leveraging these advanced technologies, helping them to find insights in the data, pointing out best practices and the ways to utilize the system, and then following up weekly to hold Honeywell Intelligrated and the customer accountable to making sure we're taking those actions that are going to drive that outcome, and then measuring the value of the outcome.
Okay. Let's see. What kind of data do you look at?
So we look at several different data inputs. So we look at inputs from, sensorization. We talked about actually installing on the equipment, inputs from the control system. So you're getting status and key performance indicators, inputs from the conveyor maintenance management system for work order integration and the overall maintenance history of the equipment. And then we've talked about the voice as well. So actually getting checklists checked off using a voice solution to streamline the whole process.
Interesting. Okay. Let's see. Another question. Are there additional risks to becoming more remote?
Oh, well, I think the way the world is, we're finding out that remote is probably the likelihood for the next 6 to 12 months and has been definitely for the last 6 months. So I think this has been a great training ground to help us realize the things that we don't do well remotely. And that as systems are being maintained, more and more of that effort is going to become remote, right? It's going to be more data driven. It's going to be less people that you can find locally to do some of the work. So you might be dealing with less skilled or less experienced people. And I think you're going to see even more remote operations happening, maybe more centralized monitoring of operations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely likely. Okay, I'll move on to the next question then. This is an interesting one. How will this impact micro-fulfillment?
So I think microfilament is would be what you call a aligned use case for some kind of connected services technology. Because when you think of micro-fulfillment, it probably won't have a large maintenance staff. It's going to be a smaller facility. It may be in the back of a store or in an urban area. So there's a good chance that a lot of that issue detection is going to have to be completely automated. And then you may have a floating technician that's visiting multiple sites, or a less experienced technician that's on site that you have to upskill to get the maintenance done to recover from maybe a downtime.
Okay. Okay. How long does it take to see results?
That's where it's very important when you start to define that initial outcome. We see customers see results in as little as 6 months. Like we see an investment pay for itself, in less than 12 months. And then, the Department of Energy says that, you'll realize 10 times your investment from transitioning to a predictive maintenance system.
Oh, wow. That seems like that's headed in the right direction. That's positive.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. The next question is, our systems are older. Will this still work with legacy systems?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, it's system agnostic. So you can apply this kind of technology to legacy systems or even the most current up-to-date systems. You're still gathering very similar type data points. You're still going through, a CMMS, trying to manage assets. You need some kind of workflow direction. So all of these pieces apply to a system no matter where it is in its life cycle.
All right. What kind of systems do you collect data from?
I should probably define when I think of kind of systems, I'm thinking of, shipping like type subsystems, like there's sortation systems and there's palletization systems and there's, several different kinds of PIC modules, different kinds of equipment that are out there. So we concentrate on sortation systems, and we're working to expand into more.
Okay. Let's see here. Along with smart glasses and Wi-Fi, what other hardware and accessories are required for remote troubleshooting?
So just besides, let's repeat that, Wi-Fi and smart glasses?
Smart glasses, yes. What other hardware and accessories are required for remote troubleshooting?
That's really all. I would recommend some extra batteries too.
Oh,
Yep. So really, I mean, the smart glass solutions that we've seen, you can attach them to Wi-Fi, or you can attach them to LTE as well. So it really depends on the infrastructure inside the building and the availability of cellular service. One thing to keep in mind is if you're going to rely on Wi-Fi, there's probably more dead spots in your building from a Wi-Fi standpoint than you realize. So you just want to do a survey and make sure the places that you're going to need to do maintenance actually have Wi-Fi coverage.
okay. I was just looking to see if any other questions came in, and I think that actually answers all of our questions. Yep, that is everything. So thanks a lot to all of our attendees for taking the time to submit the questions today. And that is all the time that we have for that. So Eric, thanks a lot for your patience in going through all of those. Thanks to everyone for their participation. And as a reminder, within 48 hours after this live event, you will be able to access this presentation on demand at intelligrated.com/on the move. You'll also receive an email from us with a link to the on-demand event, as well as a link to our white paper, Make the Transition to Data-Driven Lifecycle Management. So on behalf of Honeywell Intelligrated, thank you for attending today's On the Move webinar. We hope you can join us for the final webinar in our Strategies for Driving Productivity in Challenging Times webinar series on Thursday, October 29th. And registration information can be found on our website at intelligrated.com/on the move. So thanks to everyone for attending and to our presenters, and have a great afternoon.